So thank you. It's always a pleasure to be in a group of so many teachers, talking about the kids, talking about the future. As I look back, reclaiming the promise. What's a promise? It's about the future. And what's the future? It's the kids. It's the children of America. And who's going to take care of them? Besides the parents, it's you. And your success is America's success. It's the world's success. Now, education has been controversial for thousands of years. So the disputes aren't going to end. I have been around long enough now. I don't want to tell you how long. In fact, it was 40 years since I first ran for governor. Most of the people I've run against are dead. So who said showing up is half the battle? Well, staying in the battle is the battle. Anyway, what I see here in the whole fight about education, every 10 years there's a new kind of test, there's a new kind of set of standards, and I always wonder about that. I don't think the human brain has evolved in the last 10,000 years since the invention of agriculture, but the invention of new curricula, new tests, changes about every 10 years. So we got to get back to first principles. And the first principle is the child, the student, the young man or the woman. And where is this all being encountered? Not in Washington, not in the state capitol, but right in the classroom. And when you shut the door, it's the teacher, not Arne Duncan, that's going to make the difference for the future of our country. Or the governor of California, for that matter. I want to thank AFT particularly for the support on Proposition 30. People said it couldn't be done. Where else have the people themselves voted to raise taxes? Now, they did raise taxes on themselves because it was a quarter-cent sales tax on everybody. But they also raised taxes on those most able to pay. 3% additional on the income tax for people who made $1 million or more. So we did that, and you were there, and you made a big, big difference, and I want to thank you for that. Because at the end of the day, we can talk about education, but if we can't pay for the classroom and the teacher and the materials, then we're not going to accomplish very much. So it's not just the money that's flowing in, which is crucial, but it's also how is the classroom, how is teaching, the learning, how's it going to be organized? And in California, we are breaking the mold. Not only this year do we say no to double testing, our old tests, and then doing the Common Core test all in the same year, we said no. Let's just take it one step at a time. We'll adopt the Common Core, but let's find out. Let's pilot test before we get all this reporting on which kid did this and which teacher did that. Let's go at it as an intelligent, careful, step-by-step way. So we had to say to Washington, no, we're not going to follow your No Child Left Behind and test every kid from second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth and 10th and 11th. No, we're going to get it right. How do you get it right? You put up enough money for the technology, you invest in teacher preparation, and you learn. So we did testing. In fact, of the Common Core test this year, 3/4 of the kids were tested in California. But we didn't test to say gotcha to the student or to the teacher. We tested to find out how's this test working and how are we going to interpret it and shape it so it truly works to enhance teaching, not to just say, hey, we gotcha. No, we're here to be successful, not to just engage in controversies. And I would say there's a lot. It's very easy to take a problem that is difficult and start pointing fingers. Let's, jump on. That's what politicians love to do. I kind of like it myself sometimes. What do? We got a problem with the border. So they all jump in Washington. Everybody's blaming it's Obama's fault. It's the border, this and that. Wait a minute. We got a human tragedy here. We got kids whose throats are being slashed in El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala. And not, by the way, accidentally from some of the policies of the last 20 and 30 years. So we got a problem, and the only way we solve it is if Republicans and Democrats, if congressmen and congresswomen work with the president to deal with a very difficult problem. And it's a human problem, not a problem for the next politician jumping on board to get himself ahead. So when we talk about dealing with real problems in California, we're not cooking up recipes in Sacramento, our state capital. We know that those closest to the issue are the ones who have the most control. So I like to think of how this whole thing works. At the very end, we have Washington. We have the Secretary of Education. Then we have our own Secretary of Education. We have the governor. We have the state board. And then you have the school board. Then you have the school superintendent. Then you have the principal. And then you have the teacher. Now, obviously, the focus has to start in the classroom. And that's why California has adopted the local control spending formula, because we put the authority and the maximum discretion right where it belongs. And we've cut dozens of commands. See, there's an idea that if you're in your bunker in Sacramento or Washington, you can issue commands to 320,000 teachers and over 6 million kids and somehow get a result. Well, the result is going to happen in the child's family, in the classroom, in the schoolyard, in the local community. Local control says that's the way we're going to do it. So instead of having all these prescriptive mandates, we have a very wide discretion that each school district can figure out for themselves. And then to get the accountability, we have a local accountability plan. And such a plan has been filed by every school district in California. It was filed by July 1st, and not just by some insiders figuring stuff out. There have been meetings with thousands of people in every county of California. People have become engaged, students, teachers, parents, about how to deal with these great, often intractable educational problems. That's local control, not top down, but right from the bottom, because that's where people are. That's where the transformation takes place, or it doesn't. Now, in the local control formula, we do something else. It was a big struggle for decades about equal spending. So rich districts shouldn't get more money than poor districts. Well, in California, we've upended that. We're not talking about equal spending. We're talking about unequal spending. Those who have the biggest challenge, they need the most money, the most resources, the most teachers, the most counselors, the most attention. And that's exactly what we have. And, you know, it's going to take time. People say, oh, California, they used to be saying it was a failed state. We got, by the way, we don't do all that well in the NAEP test. I think we're 47th, not so great. But we are the 8th largest economy in the world. All these people from all the world are coming out here. Even at the border, people are coming here because they think it's great. By the way, they may come in through Texas because they have so many holes in the border down there, but they usually want to get over to California as fast as they can because stuff is happening here. I'm not saying I'm encouraging that. I'm not. I know people are starting to write that down. No, it's a problem, and we get it solved, not with rhetoric, but by the Republicans getting together with President Obama and with the presidents of Central America and dealing with it as a total challenge, not just as an opportunity to get some political class a few points ahead. So the formula on our local control plan is to give more money based on how many kids are from families that are eligible for the federal nutrition plan, how many families do not speak English at home, and how many kids are in the foster care program. We take those three markers and we send a disproportionate, an extra amount of money to try to deal with that. And with Proposition 30 and the recovering of the economy and our Proposition 98, which teachers all helped pass, more money is going to be flowing into the schools for the indefinite future. And in doing that, we have to all work together to make sure that kids get what they need. Now, some people seem to operate like the mind is a machine. that this is an input-output problem. Well, let me say very frankly, the mind is not a machine, and not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Einstein said that, okay? And what's that all about? If I could give you another quote, there's a man named John Keats. You remember him from your English class. He said, "Truth is beauty, beauty is truth. That's all you know and all you need to know." Now, where was that on the test in terms of understanding beauty? So what we're really faced with is, yes, rigor and numeracy and calculating, but we're also challenged to inspire, to perceive beauty, to develop relationships, to build character. And so teaching is not a recipe or a formula, it's a relationship. And what is required is not to pour stuff in the brain, but to light the fire in each student and to share that enthusiasm. And you can't share it if you don't feel it. And you're not going to feel it if every step you have to make is choreographed by somebody 3,000 miles away. And there is the challenge, I think, for AFT. You have to be not only an advocate for teachers, you have to be, and you are an advocate for kids, but for a professionalism, for a humanism, and for that spirit of learning and teaching, which is the essential relationship. So it is the character of the teacher spread and exchanged and shared with the teacher, with the student rather. And that's really the great challenge here, because a lot of people, you know, they may know how to make widgets. They probably, sometimes they get a little carried away. I think of that Charlie Chaplin movie where the guy's with a stopwatch and they're trying to speed up the factory. Well, that may work with cars or with widgets. It doesn't work with kids. And that's why this is a profession. And the classroom is not the factory floor. It's the encounter of minds and feelings and personalities and faith and vision. And that's what, in its best moments, the American Federation of Teachers stand for. And we stood together on Proposition 30, we've stood together on testing, and we'll stand together even on many issues that are still controversial, about different measures of accountability. There's a lot to be done. We pass bills, we'll pass more. It's never finished. But what is most important is reclaiming the promise, which is building for the future, not stealing from it. And you are in charge of the future because you're in charge of the kids. And this is a caring profession, not some kind of mechanical, let's create a new gadget. There's no gadget that can substitute for the love of teachers for students and students for their teacher. That's what it's all about. And I would just say, one of the best tests I ever remember from senior English class was write your impression of a green leaf. Boy, did I have trouble with that. After I wrote the damn essay, I realized I didn't even have an impression of a green leaf. I hadn't thought about green leaves. And now for the rest of my life, every time I pass a tree, I think of that exam. What is my impression? Do I have one? Do I need to develop a new aspect of my character or my sensibility? So that's a good teacher, and that's a good test. And together, we're going to pass the test of reclaiming the promise, building for the future, not stealing from it. Thank you.